Karim Alsubhi was shot point blank while working at King Soopers in Denver, Colorado, November 23rd, 2003, 2 days before Thanksgiving. He wore a bulletproof vest that he thought would protect him, but it didn't. A bullet miraculously missed the vest and seemingly mysteriously shattered his spine, rendering him a paraplegic. So how could this happen, and why didn't the vest protect Karim? Today, the Insider Exclusive goes behind the headlines to investigate how Mike Sawaya and Dale Pugh, partners at the Sawaya law firm, took a case no other lawyer would touch and got justice for Karim with a record-breaking settlement by proving the bulletproof vest distributor was negligent. Mike Sawaya and Dale Pugh have earned the highest respect from citizens and lawyers alike as one of the best people's trial lawyers in Colorado and in the nation. They have seen many innocent and hardworking people suffer needless injury, and because of that, they are driven to fight for people who have been harmed by the willful or negligent actions of others. They learned a long time ago that if a man hasn't discovered something he will die for, he isn't fit to live. Their goal is not only to get justice for their clients, but to make sure that companies manufacture safe products and teach proper safety procedures to keep employees and customers safe. Because injustice anywhere is a threat to justice everywhere, and justice and power must be brought together so that whatever is just may be powerful, and whatever is powerful may be just. Hi, I'm Steve Murphy, and this is the Insider Exclusive, live from Denver, Colorado at the Sawaya Law Firm. It is my great pleasure to introduce Mike Sawaya and Dale Pugh to the show. Welcome to the show.
Thank you.
Today we're going to be talking about an unusual case, but before we get to that, tell us a little bit about your firm. What does your firm specialize in?
Our firm, at this point, after 35 years, 36 years now, is in injury cases mostly. People that have been injured in car accidents, injured by products, workers' compensation cases, Social Security disability, and now we do veterans disability as well. I'm busy with a lot of injured people.
They all have the same thing in common. They help the ordinary, average person, don't they?
If you're an innocent victim of an accident through no fault of your own, then we're going to help you.
Right.
And you've been doing this, what, for 36 years?
Yes.
And between both of you, it's what, over 60, almost 50, 60 years?
Lots of years, yes.
Yeah. There are many different practices of law that you could choose. Why do you choose to, this is the right way to put this, you gamble with every case you take on because you don't get paid in advance, do you? Nobody pays you. You analyze a case and you decide whether they have a chance to get justice. Why do you do that?
Steve, it's not about the money. My life is dedicated to making sure that people reach their true potential. Whether it's in the law or in terms of the spiritual things I'm interested in, it's all about that. And when someone has taken away your potential, taken away something that was the core of your being, it takes a trained group of people, lawyers, doctors, spiritual counselors, psychologists, to help you rebuild it. And that's what we at this firm are dedicated to doing. Because my dad used to say, he who lives for the dollar alone coins his very soul.
I like that.
We don't do that here. We do that we bring everybody to sit in this chair, and I try to connect with who they are and what they need. I get rich people in here, I get poor people in here. It's all the same. It's all the story about how you are able to regain what you lost.
Right.
And when it's an injury, it means recuperating from the injury. It means getting over the trauma of it. It means, in the case of Mr. Alsubhi that we'll be talking about, how to live in a wheelchair the rest of your life.
Right.
When you were a vibrant man all of your life, when you're married to a beautiful young woman.
Let's talk about this case, because this is a case no lawyer would touch. So tell us a little bit about who is Karim Alsubhi.
I'll start out talking because I met the man in the rehab at Craig Hospital, sitting in a chair, and he wasn't used to being in a wheelchair. This was a new thing for him. And he's saying, how come I'm sitting in this chair? That's what he said. Why did the bullet go through? I was wearing a bulletproof vest. How come I'm sitting here? It must have been a bad vest.
We have some TV footage, actual video footage of where Karim was working. He was working as a security guard.
Yes.
And he was wearing a bulletproof vest, and we're going to go to that right now so our audience can see exactly what happened. Let's do that. As you can see in the video, a robber came in, shot him. The vest was supposed to protect him, but what happened?
Well, this was the chore to find out. We went down to the Denver Police Department to their evidence room and pulled it out. There's not a hole in this vest.
And you have the vest
hole?
here,
In fact,
right?
I have the very best right here.
Where's the hole? There's no hole in this
This is in
vest.
fact the vest that Karim Alsubhi was wearing. The blood stains are still on it. If this vest had been given to him properly, the bullet hole should have been right here, and it's not there.
So I went down, I saw it with Mr. Alsubhi's two sons, and I went back to the hospital and I said, there's no hole in there. He said, you've got to be kidding me. You don't know what you're talking about. I was wearing a vest.
Right.
I'll see. He showed me his body, where it went in my body. How come it wasn't covered? So that's when the detective story began.
Right.
That's when we began to develop the factual parts of this case to prove it.
Now, you have provided us some animation, graphics, showing how the trajectory of the bullet went in him. And the angle, I think it was 65 degrees toward his spine.
Right.
And it ripped open his spine, and he is now a paraplegic, is he not?
Correct.
That's right.
Okay. And he collapsed basically from this.
Oh,
Yeah.
When he fell to the ground, he was never going to get up again.
no.
Tell us your legal strategy in pursuing this case, because as I mentioned earlier, from my understanding, no lawyer wanted to touch this case.
And it's
What was the
I
difficulty?
would gainsay to say it's probably the only case of its kind in U.S. history,
Okay.
where someone, a person that fitted a vest, was sued for improperly fitting the vest.
So, and we want to make this clear, the defendant was not the manufacturer of the bullet vest.
Because the bullet didn't hit the vest itself, we could not claim that there was some malfunction of the actual vest or the product wasn't appropriate. So we had to figure out, once again, the critical question is, why did the bullet not hit the vest? And we came to the conclusion it was because it was the wrong size.
Well, what we found out with our investigation, after a fair amount of dollars spent, this case was a very expensive case of $150,000 in costs.
Why did it cost so much?
Because you have to find these people who are expert. Who in the United States is an expert in fitting vests, armored vests? There's a handful of them. And it had to be someone who was interested in taking the time. We had to fly him here to Denver. He had to see the vest. He had to interview Mr. Alsubhi. We had to try to figure out what happened. And over time of our detective work, the facts began to show more clearly why it happened. It happened because of the way it was fit, because of the movement. The vest, when it was on his body, appeared to fit him. But because it wasn't properly fit, it didn't move with his body, and it moved up when he went down and allowed the bullet to go in. That's why there was a case for misfitting the vest.
Right. When you say it didn't fit properly, it was too big, wasn't it?
Actually, it was too small. He was a fairly stout person,
Yeah.
5'8", 210 pounds, and the vest did not surround his entire body the way that it should have.
And therefore it exposed, if you have that vest right there, it exposed on his side an area that was too large, right?
Exactly.
Where that bullet could enter in,
Right.
and the vest was useless.
Right.
The appropriate gap in a vest here is supposed to be 1 inch. As the photos that we obtained after the fact when he wore this vest indicated, he had 3 and 4 inch gaps in the side of his vest,
Right.
which allowed a situation where it would be worn asymmetrically. It might look correct in the front, but in the back it would be off-center.
It shifted, and you have some diagrams which we're showing right now how it shifted, and it exposed a greater area than should have, right?
Correct.
That's correct.
And so how did you prove this case? What was your legal strategy?
Well, if I might, I came into the case after it had been started. I do have a background in the military and federal law enforcement, so I've worn vests before. I have a degree in forensic science, so I have some sort of analytical capabilities here. When I looked at this, I immediately appreciated that this case was not a negligence case. In a normal lawsuit, a personal injury lawsuit, you have to prove negligence, you have to prove causation, you have to prove damages. This case had been prepared, and the defense had been trying to suggest that there was no negligence whatsoever in this case, and that's all that they focused on. I realized immediately that they were clearly negligent because this vest could not possibly have been the right size for him. And once I decided that, I began to focus on what the real problem with the case was, which was whether or not the negligence in fitting him incorrectly was actually the cause.
And the responsibility of fitting him properly lay directly with the distributor of the vest,
Yes.
correct?
Correct.
So they had a responsibility to make sure that they trained the consumer.
This is basically a police equipment company. So they're selling to law enforcement officers, they're selling to security guards like Mr. Alsubhi, and they have very specific criteria for how a vest is supposed to fit. They have very specific criteria on how they are supposed to fit the customer before they order the vest that fits their size.
As you pursued this case, did you just find out that the company gave Karim a vest and said, "Here, wear this"? Basically, that's what they said.
Basically, that's what we found out, that they didn't
He
do
didn't
the
know
proper
anything about
follow-up.
how the things should fit, whether you should have an inch or 3 inches or whatever, right?
Not at all.
He was completely relying on them, and because of that, he never felt that he was in any danger whatsoever, and in fact believed that because he was wearing this vest, he would be protected against the very sort of incident that happened in this case.
And your discovery, you discovered that there were at this company, there was nobody responsible for the fitting, was there? There were no records of anybody responsible. They just handed them out.
They lost all the records or never had them to begin with.
We were able to show that they had very specific rules on what's supposed to happen, both internally in this
They knew
particular
what they were
business
supposed to
and
do.
from the manufacturer. But in this particular case, they had no paperwork on why they gave Mr. Alsubhi this particular vest.
Now, you had in this case kind of an OJ moment, didn't you? Meaning that you invited the jurors to try on the vest. Is that correct?
That's right.
If the glove don't fit, you must have quit, right?
Yeah, the trial was fun. I must say it was very interesting. We had the judges from Denver District Court all poking their heads in to see this case because it was so unusual.
Yeah.
The vest that didn't fit case.
Yeah.
It's probably the only one ever tried, at least in Denver, maybe the only one in the world. So people were coming in saying, "How did you do this?" And actually, in fact, congratulating us on saying, "You brought a case that's pretty interesting. This was a good deal," and I'm very proud of what we did, and I'm proud of the result. It's still an ongoing workers' compensation case in our office.
Yeah, and tell us why that is so.
Because he was on the job when it happened.
Yeah.
And anything that happens on the job becomes a workers' compensation case.
So you've settled one portion of the case.
Yes.
With the manufacturer of the bulletproof vest distributor. But you still have a workers' compensation case against his employer.
We do, and we're also proud of that.
Why does that take so
Well,
long?
workers' compensation is for life if you need the disability benefits or the medical benefits. And his medical benefits are ongoing. For instance, we just now got a ruling from the administrative law judge, which is probably unique in the United States, that in vitro fertilization benefits will be provided to him because he can't bear a child naturally. And this is maybe the first of its kind. I mean, we have not stopped fighting for Mr. Alsubhi, and we will continue to fight for him until the last breath of the last lawyer here, and there's 18 of us.
Yeah.
Anyone who's injured as severely as Mr. Alsubhi was is going to have a lifetime of issues, medical requirements, and just lifestyle issues. And under the workers' comp laws here in Colorado, he's entitled to get those benefits from his employer.
Right. Now, I know the settlement, the dollar amount was confidential.
Yes.
But it has provided Karim with enough funds so that he can buy a house, that he can buy the vehicle that he needs to drive. And we have a kind of a day in the life video of him we're going to go to here in a moment to show how his life is now. as we can see, even though he's injured, he's better off because of your law firm, right?
Well, Mr. Alsubhi is a wonderful man, and he's a spiritual man, and he's made something of his life, even though he has to sit in this chair the rest of his life.
Right.
So, you know, we take him as we get him. They're not as all put together as Mr. Alsubhi is in terms of his spirituality. And his wife has stayed by his side dutifully this whole time. So there are some really good things about it.
When you made some claims, when you filed a lawsuit against a distributor, were they kind of shocked that they were even being brought into this
indignant.
They were amazed.
Their lawyers were indignant.
Yeah.
As I said,
Are they thinking differently now?
They were angry with me because I would bring such a claim. How dare you do such a thing?
They probably call that a frivolous lawsuit,
Oh,
right?
yes, it was frivolous as can be. You know, I got hit with that through the whole case.
They're now thinking differently, aren't
Well,
they?
I don't care what they're thinking. You know, I got the result I wanted from my client, and I don't know that I can change their thinking. I want to change the way they treat my clients.
There's a lot of questions that people have when they have injuries, and some of them are like, when will my case be settled?
I
How
know
would
we
you
see
answer
that.
that?
I always tell them that, first of all, if we've developed the case from the liability standpoint, and Mr. Alsubhi's case took years to resolve, then the question is, well, how do we resolve it from the standpoint of your damages?
Yes.
And those are frequently ongoing, unfolding stories. If you need medical treatment, we may have to get through 2 or 3 surgeries before we know whether you'll have a recovery and what kind of recovery you will have. Whether this will disable you forever from working or only 50% from working. And if so, how do we prove this? What experts do we have to hire that do vocational counseling, that do economics, that do the various aspects of the case? It's an unfolding story that continues until it's either resolved by settlement or it's taken to a jury.
Yeah, you hear a lot of people when they're injured, they say, how much is my case worth? I mean, probably everybody who walks in this office says that to you.
No, not everybody. Not everybody, because a lot of people now are only interested in making sure that they get well and they get on the way. I don't think our society is turned over to greed completely, although you do hear some of it. And we never quote prices. You can't quote a price. I couldn't have told Mr. Alsubhi what his case was worth when I saw it. I only knew that this was a man who was begging for an answer.
Yeah.
And I wanted to make sure I got him that answer, no matter what it cost.
When you take on a case, how does the client stay informed of the progress of the case?
well, we meet with the client continuously throughout the process. Typically, they are still in some sort of treatment.
Yeah.
We assist them with ensuring that they get the proper treatment. We are constantly asking them how they're getting along. For the most part, because we can't really develop a case to its fullest until their treatment is completed and we actually know what treatment has been required and how much money has been involved in getting them that treatment. Things take some time. So we have a process in which we
Right.
In any type of case, one of the things you always hope for, not only to get the best result for your client, but also to make a difference, to make a change about the way things are done. Do you think this case has made a change about the way fittings are done?
At this particular company, I'm sure it does. I would be surprised. I was surprised when I found out they fitted the vest this way.
Yeah.
Because I don't know whether it was just an oversight, whether they didn't mean to do it. I think it's a good company, from what I was led to believe, a reputable company. But even reputable people can make mistakes.
Sure.
Anybody can hurt someone inadvertently with negligence. That's what the law is set up for.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I'm sure this case has resonated among other companies that provide these kinds of services and these kinds of products. And of course, we're going to hope that those people who wear a vest, who are in either private security like Mr. Alsubhi or in law enforcement, that they're paying more close attention to their own situation and making sure that they have a proper fit on something like that, because obviously a vest like this is of no good if it's not fit properly.
Absolutely. Well, you did a great job on this case, and we're really impressed. That's one of the reasons why I wanted to do this story, and we thank you very much for taking the time to be with us today.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Thanks for joining us. You can get more information about our guest and the issues at insiderexclusive.com.